Hello, hello,
Hi.
hello. Welcome to this session of just introducing neuroholistic therapy. Now, there's a possibility that I might put this up onto YouTube because it's a free session. So if you're okay with that, then that means that there might be people who see this that don't know who I am. Now I know who you are. Uh, we've been in many astrology class together. My name is David Charles Rowan, as well as being an astrologer. I'm also a teacher and trainer and practitioner in neuroholistic therapy. And as well as having a Master of Arts degree in cultural astronomy and astrology, I've also got a Master of Science degree in psychosocial studies. And a part of that involved researching affective neuroscience, which is the neuroscience of human emotions. And that introduced me to a whole kind of deeper level of what can be described as interpersonal neurobiology. In other words, the neuroscience of what happens when two people are in conversation. For example, a consultation, a therapeutic type dynamic would do that. But also, that also applies to what happens if you're talking to a hairdresser or a taxi driver or someone on Zoom. Um, you know, yes, not that we get a chance to do most of the other things, but we can talk on Zoom now, which is a cool thing. Now, there will be some examples and demonstrations of a couple of sort of easy NHT techniques through this. We'll talk about language as well. And I thought it might be nice to show you how to be able to go into relaxation in 5 seconds. Does that appeal to anybody? The ability to go into relaxation in just 5 seconds? Uh, well, if it does, then that's one of the things we're going to look at. But in order to show you how to relax in 5 seconds, it means guiding you into a deep relaxation for about 20 minutes. So there'll be a part of today that's slightly trancy, a bit hypnotic, but then neuroholistic therapy is part of that. So during any work we do, you will always be aware. Your sense of smell will be improved, your sense of hearing will be improved, and so you'll find that you can just open your eyes and deal with anything that happens at your end, just whenever the necessity takes place, But while you are here, you'll find that you will learn more tools of skillful healing, which will open new pathways in your life. Now, neuroholistic therapy is my term for a synthesis, a blend of NLP and hypnotherapy and a field called psychobiology. So, might be an idea just to have a talk about each one of those in their own kind of right. Um, uh, yes, how I found this, by the way, when I began my astrological life, uh, I've been reading tarots for about 2 years, and I got used to talking to clients, and I got used to talking to people in a kind of a diplomatic way. I started reading psychology when I was 13. I dismissed Freud at 13 and a half because I thought he had some stuff missing. You know, not everything about humanity is in the basement. Some of it's in the penthouse as well. There's a kind of a higher dynamic as well as just all castration complex and penis envy. I mean, for one thing, depends on the penis, right? So I think Freud has some things missing, which ironically is castration complex theory. Yes, but anyway, um, one of the things I kind of picked up in my younger years of reading this and that was that there's a phenomenon called false memory syndrome. And this suggests that if a person has a fantasy of something, um, and the memory of that fantasy is stored not in a part of the brain where we have kind of knowledge of fantasies, but if that is actually stored in a part of the brain where we kind of have a sense of remembrance, then that means a person can remember the fantasy as if it actually happened. That happens in psychosis. That sometimes happens if a person has incredibly lucid dreams. That happens if a person takes certain psychotropic drugs. you know, so one of the things that happens in court cases of historical child abuse is that the defense lawyer can claim that the victim merely has false memory syndrome, and that the victim is remembering things, but they didn't actually happen. It's just a fantasy that got lodged in memory. And it's very hard to counter that if you're, defending yourself. So, one of the things I found when I was talking to people doing tarot readings was I didn't want to suggest that this happened or that happened, because the mere suggestion of it can sometimes plant a seed. Right? So I found a way of being able to talk about things. It's like talking around it, that gives the other person a chance to kind of talk if they wish. They can let it bypass if they wish. They can use the opportunity to discuss it here and now if they feel they want to do that. Or if they're not ready yet, at least it lets them know that there's an understanding and they can come back another time if they want. So it's all kind of loose and open and vague. And I've been doing astrology readings for about 2 weeks. This is in January 1991. And this young lady came to see me. I was about 27. She was about 25. And there was something in her astrological birth chart that suggested that between the ages of 14 and 21, she had an incredibly difficult set of circumstances. So I said to this woman, you could have had an arduous time in your late teens. And she said, yeah. I said, yeah, you could have found yourself being pushed around. Now, I don't know if you were pushed around mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, sexually, economically. So by mentioning a menu, it meant there were more than 3 choices. So that meant I wasn't suggesting any one of them. There was like a smorgasbord. Right? And she looked at me and said, arduous time. And I said, yeah. And she said, do you mean like the time that I was gang raped by my stepfather and his friends? And yeah, that would count as an arduous time. And I looked at her and she looked me straight in the eye and said, how do I trust men now? And I thought, oh my God, I've got a problem. My problem is I don't know how to reply. And I certainly don't know how to help her become into the state where she could trust again. How do you repair trust? I had no idea. I thought I need training. And I played around with self-hypnosis when I was 18, and found that I could take myself into relaxed states. In my 20s, I kind of picked up the idea that a metaphor that the brain's like a computer. So I spent my 20s writing out hypnotherapy scripts for myself, taking myself into relaxed states and then telling my brain to change itself in the manner of the spiritual teachings that I was following. Right? So I was expunging myself of jealousy and greed and envy and avarice and all these sorts of things in order to kind of accelerate a sense of enlightenment within myself. And I used the same kind of scripting when I started doing past life regressions with people as well. But this was another thing altogether. And I suddenly realized that just in the act of encountering people, you potentially expose yourself to the entire canon of human experience. Everything from from Auschwitz to Olympus, right? So I thought I need to get training. I looked at different hypnotherapy schools, and none of them were quite it for me. And then someone suggested I go and meet this guy who lived in Cornwall at the time, called Michael Harrison, and he was teaching this eclectic mix of NLP and hypnotherapy and psychobiology. So I drove all the way to Devon in a little Fiat Panda, right? And because he was doing a talk at a psychic fair. And the psychic fair was very busy. So I couldn't really talk to him that much. And he said, well, I'm doing a talk just after lunch, so come up and watch. Okay, so I went up these little wooden stairs, and there's this kind of wooden room in this old town hall, I guess it was, in Bodmin. And it was pretty Spartan. There was a piano in one corner. The only furniture was just a range of kind of kitchen chairs, wooden chairs that had been, he'd set them up in a semicircle and had a central seat. And he was sitting in front of a big window. And so I sat, pretty central, and all these other people filed in. And he said, now, my name's Michael. I'm a master practitioner of NLP. Is there anything here that anybody would like to change? And I thought, oh yeah, I still smoked at the time. I wanted to stop smoking. I had chronic hay fever. I wanted to stop that. There was loads of stuff I wanted to change about me. But I didn't want to kind of be a participant. I wanted to observe, wanted to see him in action. So I kept quiet. And this lady who was with her son and her husband said, I'm frightened of spiders. And then Michael made this kind of gesture as if he was thinking very deeply. And he went, spiders. Yes. And he said to this woman, you have a wonderful imagination, don't you? And now I'm waiting for him to say, close your eyes, count down to 10. Right. And he said, you have a wonderful imagination, don't you? And this woman said, yeah. He said, could you imagine this window behind me is a cinema screen, like a blank cinema screen? And she said, yeah. He said, and can you imagine yourself in the front row of a cinema looking up at a blank screen? Yeah. I said, okay, good. Now, are you able to imagine yourself floating up to a balcony, a safe and secure balcony? And from the balcony, you can see yourself down there in the front row looking up at a blank screen. And she went, yeah. And then he had her float up into a projection room. And from the projection room, see herself on the balcony looking down at herself in the front row, looking up at a blank screen. And then he got her to kind of fast forward pictures and rewind pictures on the screen, having flashing in black and white to color and things like this, and then jump inside the screen. And after what seemed like a very dizzying 10 minutes, and still no notion of close your eyes, now, he said to this woman, how do you feel about spiders now? I'm still waiting for him to do the trance, right? And she said, okay. And he said, well, the cleaners here look very efficient. I don't, there aren't any cupboards to look behind. He said, there's a piano over there. See if you can see one over there. And so she got up out of a chair and she walked over to the piano. And I'm watching this thinking, in my experience, very few people do something like pick up a spider, right? Put it out of a window, come back in the room and go, oh, I forgot I'm frightened of spiders, right? That very rarely happens. Most people who are frightened of spiders see a spider and go, right? That's what happens. So this woman's walking towards the piano. And I thought, whoa. And she lifted up the lid and there were just the keys, So there wasn't, she said, there's nothing here. She said, well, have a look around. So she lifted the lid up. She put a lid inside the darkness of the piano and started rummaging, looking for a spider, right? And I thought, I want that. If you can just talk to someone for 10 minutes without doing any kind of eyes closey, trancey stuff, and their fears turn around 180 degrees, that is astonishing. Yeah. I used to live in a little Wiltshire town called Ramsbury on a main corner, and it had lots of shrubbery and bushes outside. And the neighbours always knew when I had a spider client because we'd be out rummaging through the bushes looking for spiders. You have to test these things after all. But I thought, that's what I want. I want to be able to talk to someone who's frightened of not being good enough. I want to talk to someone who's frightened that they're not bright enough, smart enough, that they can't pass a driving test, that they can't survive without coffee or cigarettes or whatever. And to be able to talk to them in such a fashion that they change the orientation of their life. So we became friends. He taught me. In fact, he taught 50% of the course I was on. I taught 50% of my own course. On a Monday, Michael could only come up from Devon then once every fortnight, and he didn't like to give people training manuals in advance. So he would give us the training material weekly, right? But on some weeks he wasn't coming up, so he would post them. Right? So people would arrive at my house on a Monday morning, and we'd wait for the postman. The postman would deliver this kind of large, kind of A4 envelope. Then I'd open up the envelope and pull out the training material, and then I'd read it and then teach it instantly. So I taught 50% of my own course, but he knew that I could do that because I've got the ability to kind of figure things out. In fact, he found that, he said, you know, you're a natural for this. And we used to spend a lot of time doing a lot of kind of things. So hypnotherapy essentially is a way of using language to be able to directly access your unconscious and to speak in a way that the unconscious understands. So then you can change the dynamics of things. And we're going to talk a little bit about the neuroscience of this as we go. Now, just as a thing, I'd like to ask you a question. I'm going to say a phrase, right? And I'm going to say it more than once, but slightly differently each time, right? And I want you to notice the emotional feeling you have when I say each of these phrases. Okay, you ready? It sounds as if it's going to be the same thing, but there's some subtle difference in the wording. And I just want you to notice the emotional effect you have with the different wording. Okay, you ready? Right, here's the first one. The unconscious mind. Okay. Here's another one. You're unconscious. What's the difference in feeling between those two? In fact, was there a difference in feeling?
Yeah, I don't like the second one. Well,
the second one made you feel like you were missing something, whereas the first one, it was like a discussion, an opening for a discussion.
And also your unconscious is a little bit like vulnerable.
Right. Yeah. Any other versions? We've got vulnerability, we've got objectivity.
I think if someone says, yeah, you're unconscious, it's almost like you're out of control. It's not in your control. That's
Yes. Right. Now, what you're perceiving, right, is a difference in feeling. Yeah. And by talking about the unconscious mind, the word "the," and you call it the unconscious mind, turns it into an object. So that phrase is the language of having something out in front of you, like there's a box that you're looking at, right? And you can pick the box up and you can look at it and sort of read the label on the side. You can look at the unconscious mind. It's a thing. And by talking about it like that, that means it's out in front of you. Right? But the word "your" in English language is an ambiguity, because "your" means Y-O-U-R, means owning. It's your ownership, right? But "your" can also be Y-O-U''RE, meaning you are unconscious. Now, when the conscious mind receives ambiguity in language, every meaning of that ambiguity is taken in by your unconscious. And your conscious mind just selects one of the ambiguities to go with, but the other one goes in. Right? So if you say to someone, "You're unconscious," they start to go into trance. And so I find it quite helpful, you know, when I have a client come and see me, the first thing I do is explain what we're going to do. And so that means I talk about the dynamics of your unconscious. So, you know, all human behavior programs are stored in your unconscious, right? And having the language to access your unconscious means then you can enable your unconscious to learn how to change so that it benefits the whole of you rather than just some parts of you. You know, so if a person smokes cigarettes, the part of them that runs their smoking program, if you like, works very well. You know, they'll buy cigarettes before they buy food. They buy cigarettes before they buy rent, right? And it's consistent and it's reliable and it works. But it's not functioning in harmony with the part of them that wants to be healthy. It's not functioning in harmony with the part of them that doesn't want to set light to their money. Right? So it's almost like the smoking program is running on its own without recourse to the rest of the system. So part of the reason that I call this neuroholistic therapy is that in deeper work, you can talk with the person's unconscious and have direct communication with the part of the person that runs the smoking program and help it to learn to be able to get to the same essential value that it gets from smoking, but find another way. Now, I'll give you an idea of what I mean by that. One December, a lady came to see me many moons ago, who announced, I must stop eating chocolate. And I thought, oh, that's extreme. I must do it because that's an essential, isn't it? You know, that's like stopping chocolate is as essential as, not drowning. So I said, okay, and what's the reason for this? She said, well, it's Christmas coming, and I'm going to go to my relatives in Southampton, and they'll all have chocolates, and they'll be passing chocolates around, and I can't do that. I said, oh, how come? I said, well, I eat 10 bars of chocolate a day already. I said, you eat 10 bars of chocolate a day? She said, yeah. She said, I eat 10 bars of chocolate until I feel sick, and then I carry on. I thought, whoa, that's interesting. Right. So I said, oh, okay. Can I ask you a very strange question? She said, yeah. I said, what do you get out of this? What do you do it for? All behaviors have a purpose. So what's the purpose for? And she said, oh, comfort, I suppose. I said, right, okay. So you eat the chocolate to get comfort? She said, yeah. And I said, does it work? And she said, yeah, I get the comfort when I eat the chocolate. I said, well, then there's no problem. What are you doing here? And she said, no, you don't understand. It doesn't work for very long. I said, how long does it work for? She said, about 40 seconds. About 40 seconds. She said, yeah. I said, okay, just imagine it's a slow down, slow motion movie, right? So you eat the chocolate. She said, yeah. And I said, what happens next? She said, well, I eat the chocolate, and then I say to myself, oh, I shouldn't have done that, right? And as soon as she says the words, oh, I shouldn't have done that, she then starts to feel worse and worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And she feels so bad that she has to eat the chocolate to get herself back up again. Right. And I said, right, okay. And that whole cycle happens every 40 seconds. She said, yeah. So I said, if we draw that on a graph, you're doing this. Wee-hum, 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 all day. And she went, yeah. I said, well, I'd feel nauseous if I was doing that. But then I showed her what I'm going to show you fairly soon. And that is how to relax in 5 seconds. So to do that, I talked her into a deep relaxation, and then did something very kind of peculiar within that session, a bit of a coaching session, as it were. And then afterwards, we tested it, we checked it, and she found that she could take herself into relaxation in 5 seconds. But then I did another kind of trance where I could talk directly with the part of her that ran her chocolate eating program. And what I got that part to do was to explore some other ways of getting the same positive intention. You see, the part that ran the chocolate eating program was using chocolate as a strategy to get comfort. The goal was the comfort. The goal wasn't the chocolate. Right? So I got it to contemplate eating the chocolate, doing the relaxation that I just shown it, calling her mum, fussing a cat, hugging a friend. And we went through kind of like a bit of a list. We got about 10 different ways that she could obtain comfort in her life. And then I got her unconscious to evaluate which it considered to be the most effective, the most immediate, and most available. And it decided that the relaxation was the most effective. The relaxation was the most available because it's instantly quick. It's only 5 seconds. And it's better for her health, and it's cheaper. It's free because it's in her brain. And so it's just like a switch. And so once the part of a person that's running a particular behavior finds a new and better way of doing it, it switches automatically. We're all wired to evolve. Even self-destructive parts have their own kind of nuances and strange paradoxes. And one of the beautiful things about human nature is it is paradoxical. You might have met someone in your life who seemed to have a self-sabotaging dynamic, and yet it's not very competent because they're alive. And so since it's already incompetent, what's the point? You may as well help it to kind of find something else to do that at least it can do better or in a skilled way. Neurolinguistic programming, NLP, comes from, there was a guy called Richard Bandler, another one called John Grinder, and they shared house. John Grinder was a teacher of linguistics, and Richard Bandler was at Stanford University, and he was doing a psychology degree, but he got a cheap rate because he was doing that in exchange for working in their computer department. He was a computer programmer. And one of the things he had to do as part of his work was to catalog and label the library of videos of therapists. And quite typically, there'd be a therapist behind a desk in a room. A person would come into the room, sit in front of the desk, say, "I'm depressed." And then the person behind the desk would either try to prompt them to talk by not asking questions or give them drugs. And the person would say, "Thank you." And then the next week, the person would come back again. And this would go on and on and on and on. Right? And if a person was a client of the psychologist for 3 years, the psychologist would say that he's successful. You know, I've been Mrs. Robertson's therapist for 3 years, therefore I'm a successful therapist. But there were some other kind of people who were different. There was a woman called Virginia Satir. There was a man called Milton Erickson. And when someone came into the room to see Milton Erickson, they'd sit on the chair and say, "I'm depressed." Within half an hour, you could see their physiology change. They'd perk up. They'd get a twinkle in their eye again. They'd come back in their next session talking about their new job or their new relationship. Then they'd buy them Christmas presents every year. And so Bandler, being a student, got the tapes and took them home, because the woman, Virginia Satir, who was getting similar results, said that hypnosis is bad and it doesn't exist. Okay, how can something be bad if it doesn't exist? It's an interesting idea, isn't it? But yes, so she warned off against hypnosis. But this guy, Milton Erickson, was getting these brilliant results. So he said to the linguistic guy, "I can't understand what's going on here. He's doing the hypnotherapy. She's doing this family therapy. They're getting brilliant results. And she says that his stuff doesn't exist. How come they're both getting results?" So the linguistic guy watched the tapes and said, "Well, if you just put the identification labels to one side and listen, watch how they're communicating." And what he found was that they were both using language in the same way. They were both speaking similar phrases. They'd move across and they'd touch the client occasionally on the arm in a similar way. And they found that when they kind of removed the lenses of expectation, what they were watching was a kind of a demonstration of human beings in conversation, and one of them facilitating change in the other. So they wrote it down, right? And at one point, Richard Bandler thought about, the moon landings, that NASA was happening, and people were kind of going off to the moon and all that kind of thing. The science of humanity was incredible. We were doing all these frontiers. And Bandler thought, if we got the technology to stand on the moon, how come we haven't got the technology for a person to walk into the room and say, "I've got a particular issue," and we can resolve it? So he put out this kind of little notice in the local newspaper, this advert, and he thought he'd want to find out about phobias. So he put this thing in it saying, "Wanted, anyone who had a phobia and got over it. There's something in it for you." And he had the intention of giving people $5 in exchange for a conversation. And he thought he might get maybe half a dozen, maybe a dozen people replying. He was swamped. He got more than 200 replies. So he started interviewing them, and he found that they all had a similar structure. Although the content was different, the structure was the same. They'd say, like, "Well, I'd get to the airport and I'd see the planes and I'd start to feel afraid," right? And then I stopped and I looked at myself and I said, "That's the straw that breaks the camel's back." And then I decided to go ahead and get on the plane. And so having written these things down, the neural structures of these things, he then got some people with phobias and said, "Listen to this." And he kind of guided them through the same thinking steps. So he'd say to people, "So see yourself over there." not you, but a version of yourself over there. They go, right, and see yourself getting in the elevator. Yeah. And now go up in the elevator, clawing at the walls, right? All the way to the top. And they go, yeah. Right? And he said, and now rewind the movie, have it come down, pull your fingernails out of the walls, right? Come back to the chair. And what's it like now? And they go, well, that's silly. And he found that by doing these kind of techniques of changing the way that a person thinks about something, their relationship with what they experience changes, and therefore their decisions change, their actions change, their life changes. It's rather cool. Bandler and Grinder met Milton Erickson famously, and that became the part of the bedrock of what they called NLP. They were on their way to a radio thing. They'd been doing these things with therapists, and there was a buzz kind of happening, and they were kind of teaching their tools to local therapists, and local radio wanted to interview them, but they didn't have a name for what they did. And Grinder was a linguist. Bandler was originally a programmer, and he was reading the book on neurology at the time. So in a coffee shop on the way to the radio station, they decided to call it Neurolinguistic programming, because they wanted it to be something that you didn't understand when you encountered it. You would have to say, what's that? And that meant you couldn't have a prejudice before you encountered it, at least back in 1973, 74, when it was new. Around 1972, Milton Erickson met another man, a man called Ernest Lawrence Rossi. Rossi was a medical doctor, and he was fascinated by Milton Erickson. Milton Erickson had polio when he was a child, just like Ian Dury did. And he used to kind of be wheeled into a wheelchair into client sessions, and they'd get him from the wheelchair into his therapy chair and things. And Rossi was fascinated by how he could do pain control so well, you know. So they started collaborating. They wrote a few books together, and towards about 1980, they started to kind of find they had a mutual interest in the phenomena of placebo. So you know that placebo is when there's nothing in the pill, it's just blank. And if you believe that the magic's in the pill, you get better. Have you all heard of that? Yeah? Okay. So how does that work then? How can a substance that's absent enable the human body to rectify itself and heal? It's a fascinating phenomenon, isn't it? In fact, the medical world find it annoying because they can't determine is it the drug or is it the belief around the drug. So they have to have double-blind tests and all the rest of it. You know, there's a woman on Have I Got News for You the other day, a couple of weeks ago, and she said, I'll have the vaccine as soon as there's one available, but I'd do a trial, she said, but I'd hope they wouldn't give me the placebo. Right? So a lot of people think placebos are annoying, but if you look at it the other way, it's fascinating. So they thought, since the placebo effect is stimulated by a belief, i.e. that there's something in the pill, is it possible to convey language to a brain in such a fashion that it has the placebo healing response? So they started experimenting with different kind of phrases, different figures of speech. They were talking quickly. They were talking very slowly, talking very quietly, talking, projecting very loud. They used all these different kind of things, trying to find it. And they started to make headway. And then sadly, Milton died because he was in his 80s. So Rossi continued the research and produced a book in 1986 called The Psychobiology of Mind-Body Healing. And it's a densely couched book that's filled with medical terminology, because he was a medical doctor and he wanted their findings to be kind of accepted by the American medical profession. So a lot of contemporary New Age complementary practitioners and therapists aren't necessarily educated in medicine. And so a lot of people find reading Ross's work a bit hard to kind of wade through, as it were. So they ignore it. But Michael Harrison didn't ignore it. He kind of waded through this material and pulled out these workable exercises. And I've been teaching that stuff for 25 years. And it is seriously, seriously fascinating. Ross's last book, or the last book of his that I've got, was 2004. And I'm going to read the title out to you. Right, hold on. Yeah, it's a big chunky tome. And I need to read the title out because of the subtitle that goes with it. It's called The Psychobiology of Gene Expression, Neuroscience and Neurogenesis in Hypnosis and the Healing Arts. So you've heard of genes, yeah, you know that your body creates the color of your eyes and how tall you are, etc., by your genes. But there are other genes that are called epigenetic, and these are experience dependent. And the experience of epigenetic genes is chemical. So one of the byproducts of neural activity is glucose production. So if you could think of, imagine someone's got a tattoo on their arm, right? When their sleeve is down, you can't see the tattoo. If you pull the sleeve back, then you reveal the tattoo. So epigenetic material is like that, right? It's read by the proteins around it. So when there is a certain chemical environment, the genetic material will switch on. But when there's a different chemical environment, the genetic material will switch off. And that book is about their research in seeing if it's possible to use the spoken word to be able to switch gene potentials on and off deliberately at will. Very cool stuff. So some of the frontier things around this are quite exciting, you know. Yes, so that gives you an idea of maybe a bit of the scope of NHD in terms of its background. In practice, you can use it to kind of help people with phobias. I've met people with all kinds of phobias over here. There's one lady who was frightened of butterflies. I just talked to one lady who was frightened of anything that had 4 legs. That was how she described it. Anything. She was frightened of cats. She was frightened of dogs. She was frightened of giraffes. She was frightened of zebras. She was frightened of mice. Yeah, anything that had 4 legs.
David, who wrote that book of the gene expression?
Ernest Lawrence Rossi.
Rossi, thank you.
Yeah, I can send you a book list if you want. I've got a book list. There's a Facebook link, and they're all listed in. Yes. So phobias, you can help with this stuff. And people are phobic around all kinds of things. You know, I met one person who was phobic around their grandmother. You know, every time they went to see the grandma, they had like this kind of funny sensation in their tummy and they didn't like it. And they didn't want to go anywhere near there, but they kept going there because they thought they had to. I met one guy who said to me, I've got a real problem. And he said, what's that? He said, I'm not frightened of anything. I said, right. So what's that? He said, well, all my friends are frightened of something, but I'm not. So I think I'm a bit weird because I'm not frightened. So he was a healthy person who was hanging out with unhealthy people. And he thought there was something wrong with him because of the quantity of unhealthy people that he was associating with. Yes, it can get a bit kind of like that sometimes, you know. I was talking to this young lad. He looked very much like a student. He was a tall, lanky kind of guy, about 19 years old, with long black hair. And he lived in Swindon. And he said, you do phobias, don't you? And I said, what, you mean I give them to people? He said, no, you get rid of them. I said, yeah, I do that. He said, could you help me out? He said, I've got a snake phobia and I'm going backpacking around Australia and Indonesia. I said, oh, right, okay. And I was fascinated. How do you get a snake phobia in Swindon, right? How does your brain go, the thing to watch out for is when you live in Swindon? And it turned out that he'd sit with his mum on the sofa when he was a little boy, and they'd watch kind of nature films, you know, David Attenborough and Big Cat Diary and things. And every time a snake came on the screen, she would go like that. And so he'd go along with her. And that's how he learned to be frightened of snakes. So I said to him, yeah, okay, well, look, when you come back, come with me and we'll sort it out. He said, no, you don't understand, man. He says, I'm going around Australia and Indonesia in the jungle. I said, yeah, I know. I said, look, if you go into a jungle without your snake phobia, you'll be picking up a red one and picking up a yellow one and going, oh, look, there's a red one, a yellow one. His face went, I said, yeah, because in Swindon, it's a phobia, but in a jungle, it's a life-saving mechanism. So that also introduces the notion that what some people might think of as mental ill health or craziness largely depends on context, right? If there was someone in your local library on a Wednesday afternoon who was hallucinating characters and then having conversations with them, you'd think this is a crazy person on a Wednesday afternoon in the local library, that you'd call someone and they'd get sectioned, right? But the person doing that behavior, if they do that behavior on the stage at Hammersmith Apollo, Eddie Izzard gets a fabulous round of applause. It's the same behavior. So in one context, the person hallucinating characters and then talking to them and making it up as they go along is a genius of comedy in a spotlight in a theater. But if that person doing exactly the same thing in someone's kitchen, that's mental, right? So where does mental health and mental wellness end and begin? What is normal? What is abnormal? Yeah, so those kind of things are quite useful to discuss. This stuff can be used to help people with traumas and heal more swiftly. I've worked with a lot of people with smoking. I used to smoke. I went into my training a smoker. I had hay fever as well. I came out of my training, never smoked again, never had any problems with pollen and things either. You know, and now I live in this countryside, and you know, when it's sunny, I go outside and I smell the grass and things. But when I was a child, I was terrified of sunshine. I was terrified of sunshine until I was about 31. You know, and then one day in the therapy session, Michael said, "Okay," so he ran this technique of allergy resolution with me. And he said, let's try it, chap. So we went to the front door of the house and opened the door. And there's this beautiful kind of lovely sunny day outside. He said, breathe in. I went and checked for mucus. Nothing, not a thing. Next week, went to a kite festival in the National Trust place. And the council had done some mowing prior to this kind of kite festival. And I found there was this smell. I thought, I know that smell. And suddenly I had the picture of the school field when I was a kid. I thought, it's the grass. I hadn't smelt fresh cut grass since I was about 6. And I could smell the fresh cut grass. And I was fine, completely fine. That changed my life in a way. It's only a little thing, you know, a little bit of hay fever. But I used to be terrified of going outside between March and September. And now suddenly I could enjoy every season and go out in sunshine. You know, there's a knock on my door, but I think it's a delivery, but they'll leave it. If they knock twice, I'll go and answer it. So, yeah, these things can be very powerful tools. And by changing one little part of life, it can have a knock-on effect on changing the whole of life. Now, these things aren't just necessarily useful for fixing things, repairing things. And you can also get good things to become brilliant. Right? So you can do skills. Now, how many of you would feel comfortable talking to a room of 20 people? I can't hear you.
I'd be okay if I knew my subject. I'd be fine.
Okay. Yeah. Sophie, how would you feel talking to a room full of 20 people?
I wouldn't feel happy, David.
You're happy with that, yeah?
No, I wouldn't.
Oh, you wouldn't? Okay. How about a theatre of 3,000 people?
No.
No?
Well, maybe if they were, if I was in the spotlight and I couldn't see them all.
Ah, yeah. Now, you see, the thing is, okay, what about talking with one person in your kitchen?
Yeah.
And they're not the police, right? And that's okay, isn't it? Right. So when you're talking to one person, your jaw goes up and down fine, and you're thinking things and the words come out in sound. And that works fine. But when you step onto a bit of raised floor that might be about 3 feet off the ground, suddenly it stops working. On the flat piece of ground, chitty chitty chat. Raised piece of ground, stuck. What is it about the height of the floor? Is it the height of the floor, or is it something else? Being able to show people how to do public speaking is an incredible thing to do. It's wonderful because it opens up so many doors in other things. You know, you can use these things to help an athlete get a better time. You can even get someone who's a complete novice of education to get a distinction for a master's degree from a standing start without any prior education whatsoever at all. It's possible to do that kind of thing, right? Now, I want to show you something in a moment, but before I do that, I need to do a little kind of check with you. And I need all of you to answer this, okay? And the check is this. Are you able to think of a piece of music that always makes you feel good?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. Mary? I can't hear you.
Yes.
Yeah. Right. Cool. All right. Now, what I want you to do is keep the piece of music private, right? Keep it private to yourself. But I want you to imagine that there are speakers in the room around you and that piece of music's playing now. That's right. Turn it up. Begin to make it vibrant, listening to that piece of music. Yeah. And how do you feel listening to that?
Very good.
Yeah?
Yeah, good.
Yeah. Cool. Now, did the feeling you have listening to that piece of music feel better than the feeling you were experiencing just prior to me mentioning it?
Yes.
Right. Okay. So you just made yourself feel better with a piece of music. What would it be like if you did that every time you felt down?
Amazing.
Well, you could take yourself into a feeling of feeling good. You see, you already know how to do it, right? You're just not necessarily consciously aware of what the mechanism is. But the thing is, of course, that piece of music wasn't being played at all. You didn't make yourself better to, feel better to a piece of music. You made yourself feel better with the thought of a piece of music. It was the thought of it because the music wasn't playing, right? So, since a thought can cause you to have a different emotional feeling, a different breathing speed, a different sense of tension in your shoulders, a different sense of tension in your hands, a different kind of overall sense of being. Since just the mere thought of a piece of music can do that, what do all the other thoughts you have take you to? Where do they take you to? When you're thinking of A or B or C or D, and you have the A or B or C or D emotional responses, right? And each one of those leads to a next thing, So if you go down the A route, you're heading towards B and C. If you go down the 1 route, you're heading towards 2 and 3 and 4. They're quite different routes. So, yeah, learning how to run your own brain is an incredible thing to be able to do, right? So I'm just going to stop the share for a second. There's a dog in the background somewhere, right? Because I want to show you something quite fascinating.
Now, here it's downstairs to Ed Hall with one of our hypnotic guests.
Thank you, Amanda. Earlier, we met David Rowan, who uses his hypnotic powers to make partygoers feel the effects of alcohol without actually touching it. Useful advice now that it's only 7 days till Christmas. Okay, this is your guinea pig, David, yes? This is Chris here. Yep. Chris, how are you at the moment?
Yeah, feeling fine.
Looks perfectly fine.
Yeah.
David, has it worked? to your knowledge?
Yeah, it's worked to mine and to Chris's as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's have a sobriety test, and let's see if Chris is 100% sober, because he could have been drinking throughout the show. It's been known to happen, and he's been cautioned on it twice. There's the white line. Chris, if you could walk heel to toe, saying red lorry, yellow lorry.
Red lorry, yellow lorry. Red lorry, yellow lorry. Red lorry, yellow lorry. Red lorry, yellow lorry. Red lorry, yellow lorry. Red lorry, yellow.
Okay. Chris, if you could come back here. Okay, I think that's proof beyond all doubt that Chris is sober, in the good sense. David, now we're going to go in there. I've got an office party disco mocked up, and Chris, we're going to get you drunk and then see how you behave in that situation. Come through with me. Here it is. Okay. Now, this is the party atmosphere. David, I believe there's a word that triggers Chris off.
Yeah,
He's got a phrase. Can you say the phrase?
No.
You can't. Why can't you say the phrase that triggers him off?
No, because there are offensive words in his phrase.
There are offensive words in his phrase.
Yeah, that's right, but it's a private phrase.
It's a private phrase. So, can we get Chris to start saying that phrase now? Which
say,
sentence is it?
No, sorry, just say the phrase in your mind.
And explain to now
In
what's
the way
going on
we've been doing.
What's happening to Chris now?
Right. What's happening now is because he's saying a phrase, he's beginning to recall what it's like when he's
intoxicated.
That's right. And if you notice his face, he's starting to smile a bit now. His sense of balance is starting to move. Yeah, you can see it.
This is 100%. It's a genuine pick, Chris, because he can't act whatsoever. And also, Chris is particularly rowdy, so we've got to watch his behaviour. So we've made him just slightly tipsy.
That's right. He's just slightly, just
okay.
enough.
So we're going to do the same test. Chris, if you could go to the line, please. And Chris, how are you feeling, by the way? Just sum up your feeling.
Well, I'm happy. I'm really happy, actually.
We all are. Okay. And red lorry, yellow lorry.
Red.
David, what have you done there?
Right, his car keys will bring him back to his normal just way of thinking.
Chris, how are you now?
Feeling much better.
Are you aware of the Chris you were a minute ago?
Yeah.
And what do you do? Can you remember what?
Well, yeah, I can remember I was pretty not with it at all. Just not with it at all. Now I'm feeling very sensible, basically.
It's good that you point out. And is it going to? You've removed the keys.
Get him to do the line again.
Now you can do the line. This is Chris now sober again. Red lorry, yellow lorry.
Red lorry, yellow lorry. Red lorry, yellow lorry.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you could, a big round of applause for Chris the Student. And that's genuine, I swear, that is genuine. Join us after the break for more of Squeaky, though.
What did you make of that, guys?
That was really good.
Yeah, it's excellent. Really good.
So, are you? Yeah. Now, just to let you know what was going on. Now, you thought of the piece of music and you changed your mood with thinking of a piece of music. Right. So, there's a technique for dealing with dental nerves, which involves there's a way of interviewing a person that amplifies their experience. One definition of trance is the amplification of responses. So if a person's in a light trance state and you start to interview them about the physiology of a particular experience, they go deeper and deeper and deeper inside that physiology. Right? Any of you that have done the inner light meditation on a Sunday or a Wednesday will understand how that feels, right? if a person was frightened of the dentist and you started to interview them about the particular sensations and the sequence of sensations about what it's like when they have local anesthetic, and then when they can replicate it, they actually feel their face go numb, you then got them to repeat a particular word or two-word phrase. Every time they say that word or that two-word phrase, their face would go numb. Just in the same way that you feel good when you listen to a piece of music, right? Because when you were this small, you know, you're 45 seconds old, you didn't know there'd be a piece of music that makes you feel good, right? But at some stage in your life, you heard that music for the first time. And that music became the soundtrack of your experience. So your brain is like a, think of your brain like a data recording chip. Some people think they've got a good memory, a bad memory. That's about recall. But memory absorption, your brain holds everything, so long as you haven't got a degenerative brain disease or brain damage or a stroke, right? So long as all your brain cells are intact, the memories are there. And each memory is composed of neurological information, sight, sounds, tastes, and smells. Right? That's how the data is recorded on the chip. So if there's a piece of music being played right now that you've never heard before, that music would become the soundtrack of this conversation. And 20, 30 years from now, if you heard that piece of music, you'd remember this conversation. Right? You might have noticed how a certain smell can take you back to a certain place. A certain gesture can take you back to a certain experience. Right? We call it neuro associative conditioning. Right? It's how memory functions. And so, you know, all of the things, the behaviors and things that a person might come to wanting resolution for, a lot of them are neuro-associated conditioning issues. You know, so being frightened of an aeroplane, a person was frightened of an airplane at one time, and now every time they even think of a plane, they go into fear, just in the same way that you, yeah. So now the idea of the technique, of course, is that a person can walk up to a dentist surgery, right? And then say their magic word, their face goes numb, they go in the surgery, yeah, without any anesthetic, right? Come out and then say their get out word, and all the nerves come back on in their face again. You need a bit of courage to give this a go, but it is feasible. And in one class a long time ago, someone said, if you can do this for, you know, local anesthetic, can you do it for a pint of beer? We thought, oh, we better find out, right? And so one of the problems with doing it with a pint of beer, of course, is that when a person goes into a drunk state, they can't remember the get out word because you have amnesia. Yeah. So what I do with people when I'm doing that kind of thing is I get them to hold their car keys before we begin, right? And they have a phrase or a word that represents sobriety. Right? And they find their own word. It's very important that you don't give them the word. And so what happens then is that the physical sensation of holding their keys along with that word becomes entwined with the state of sobriety. And that means that instead of them having to remember a word to come back to normal, they just got to pick their keys up. And it also means that they cannot drive while they're in that state, because as soon as they hold their keys, they snap out. So there's a safety thing, right? So technically what could happen is that a person goes to a party completely sober, says their magic word when they put the keys in their pocket. They go into a tipsy state. They have a tipsy evening at the party, drinking water all evening. And then when they get back to their car, they just kind of sober up, drive home. Liver fine, didn't cost them a bean, had a wonderful evening. It ended up at one point, I was asked to go to Cosmo magazine. So the Cosmopolitan magazine paid me to go to their offices in London, right? And then they paid me to spend the whole day talking to 4 beautiful young women and talking them into being drunk and then learning how to be sober. And then they did a 4-page feature on it. And yeah, so it does work, and you can do things with that. You know, a guy came to see me to stop smoking. He said, the only thing you need to see, I'm a musician. And when we're in band practice, we smoke things that you can't get at a tobacco kiosk. And that helps me to hear the music differently. So I showed him how to be able to do the same thing with cannabis. You know, So he can get completely stoned without spending a penny, and it's completely legal because it's just something to do with his mind. Very useful thing to be able to do.
David, could I just ask a question?
Yeah.
Could somebody be really tipsy because they've ingested alcohol, and then pick up their car keys and feel confident enough to drive?
That's got nothing to do with this technique.
No, okay.
Yeah, this is a
If they-
technique
if they
where a
had
person.
that suggestion wouldn't work that way.
No, it wouldn't, because they've got a chemical in their body.
Okay.
Yeah, and they'd have to wait until the chemical dissipates.
So the car key trigger wouldn't sober them up in their head.
No,
Okay.
because they've got a chemical thing going on, and so remember that the car keys are associated with a sense of sobriety when there's an absence of the alcohol chemical. Yeah.
It's a pretty good thing that you didn't tell like the whole world on that TV program what his trigger words were.
Well, there was one point in that when the guy, the presenter, said, "No, I believe he's got a certain phrase."
Yeah.
And then I said, "Yeah, but he can't say it because there were offensive words in his phrase." And then I said it's a private phrase. Now, the reason I said that was to stop his colleagues knowing his phrase. Because if his colleagues knew what his phrase was, they could then say it for a joke.
Yeah.
Right? Or a vendetta. Right? Or revenge. And so in order to kind of put the man off, the presenter off, I said there were offensive words in it. And that immediately meant they didn't want it broadcast. So therefore he couldn't say it.
Clever, yeah.
Yeah. That was a bit of thinking quick.
Yeah.
But it went really well. Now, so you can resolve a person's issues by kind of looking inside the model, right? And by that means kind of tracking things to the past, finding out the root of an issue, and then doing healing techniques on the root of the issue. So it's like, it has to be said, really, I guess, that just chatting about an issue sometimes is pretty much just like pruning weeds. You know, if you get some scissors, you go out in your garden, you kind of prune the weeds. The weeds aren't there for a moment, but then they flourish and they come back again. Right? If you dig a weed up by the root, it can't grow back. And so one kind of pathway to take is to kind of track the root, then deal with that. And then it can't come back. But there's the other way of doing things, which is outside the person's model. Like, for example, showing a person that they can be so relaxed when they go to visit the dentist that they begin to fall asleep. Right? Could you imagine that? Could you imagine being so relaxed when you go and see a dentist that you start, oh, yeah, nodding out? Yeah, that's what happens with me. Now, how this is done in a way, this is what your brain consists of. These are neurons. And there are two kind of messaging systems in the body and in the brain. One is an electrical system. This is a picture of the electrical system. But there's also a biochemical system as well. They're both rapid. The speed with which you experience pain when you step on a Lego brick tells you how quickly it takes for a sensation of pain, a stimulus of nerves in your foot to go straight up your spine and into your brain. It's very, very fast indeed. And these neurons are kind of free float. They don't actually physically attach. So here's a neuron with what's called a synapse. And the synapse has a gap, right? There's a gap between them. And there are chemicals called neurotransmitters and recepting chemicals. And the signal will jump across the synaptic gap if there is the appropriate chemical exchange. Right? There's a better view. So if there isn't the appropriate chemical exchange, then the signal will not jump across. Right? So you remember I mentioned about going to the dentist, right? So just imagine, here's a simple pathway. This is simplistic, right? Just to illustrate, some of the neural chains in your body are up to 2 miles long, right? Now, have you ever seen a child's train set? Ever seen a kiddie's train set? Right, you know that with the Hornby train set type of thing, sometimes they're sophisticated. They might have a little junction. So you've got a track going along and then it forks off left and right. And if you switch the switch one direction, the train will go to the left. And if you switch the other direction, the train will go off to the right. Okay, so think of each of your brain cells as being like a junction box or like a roundabout, right? And there are more than 100,000 roads coming off each roundabout. Right? Now, so if we have dentist, which then has a pathway to react, right? And in this example, the person goes dentist, react to fear, and then run away. Now we can see that there's a stepping sequence here. It's like stepping stones in a journey, but the person experiences this in less than a millisecond. So you go dentist, oh, they're gone. Right, it's that quick, without realizing that there are these micro steps in the process. So what we want to do, of course, is create a new pathway so that they can go from dentist, react to calm down, to relax. Okay, that's the goal. Now we need the how. How do you do that? Well, there are a variety of neuroholistic therapy techniques that will do this, right? And the easiest way to think about this, I guess, if you think of the brain like, imagine you're looking at a field of long grass, right? Summer's day, and there's a field of long grass. And a rabbit kind of goes through the field of long grass, and it avoids the quicksand, you know, and the bogs. So it goes through around the puddles. So now there's a trail of a rabbit going through the long grass, but some wind blows and the trail becomes obscured. On another occasion, a rabbit will make a trail through the long grass. And then before the wind blows, a second rabbit comes along, and it also doesn't want to fall in the quicksand, so it follows in the footsteps of the first rabbit. Right? And then a human comes along. They don't want to go in the quicksand, but they know that the rabbits can go around things, so they follow the rabbit trail through the long grass. And then someone comes along with horse and cart, and they follow the pathway that the man's made, and then someone invents tarmac, and it turns into the A360. Right? In other words, it becomes solidified. So the brain has a consistency of egg yolk. You might have seen brains on TV. Those are dried brains, right? But when it's inside your skull, it's sloppy, gloopy stuff, right? And this sloppy, gloopy stuff has billions and trillions of connections, literally, right? And so what we can do is we can use language to help these things to change their pathways, like a switching inside a train set. So what starts to happen is that if you create a new pathway and you switch the switch using language, then the old pathway is still there for a bit, and the new pathway becomes more established. And then after a while, the old pathway just completely disappears. And now what happens, whenever they think of the dentist, they relax. And in the mid-90s, a lady in the village that I lived in, she said, I've got a problem with the dentist. So what, can't you find one? She said, no, I can find one. That's the problem, right? She said, I have to have pre-med. I have to have general anesthetic when they work on me. And they even have to hold me down for the pre-med. I said, oh, right. She said, and it's expensive. And my husband has to take a day off work. I can't eat for 48 hours. I'm kind of knocked out for the next day afterwards. You know, could you help me out with this? I said, sure. She said, how long before a dental appointment should I come and see you? I said, oh, just a couple of hours. She said, oh, right, okay. Right, I'll let you know when I've got the next dental thing. So she phoned up sometime. She said you had a dental appointment in the afternoon. Said, so what time should I come round? Yeah, 11-ish if you want. I said, how long would it take? I said, about a quarter of an hour. She said, quarter of an hour? Said, yeah. So she came round, and I put into a light trance, and I asked her unconscious to have it that whenever she saw the outside of any dentist surgery, that it would make this sound in the back of her mind. And the act of walking through in trance into the dental surgery her shoulders would become relaxed and her hands would go loose and floppy by her side. And each and every time she hears this sound, she goes into a deep state of relaxation. Zzz. And that afternoon, about just after 3 o'clock-ish, the phone rang, and this woman said, "Hello, I'm from such a dentist surgery in Marlborough." I went, "All right." And she said, I'm thinking, what happened? Oh my God, what's she done? She jumped out the window or something. What's happened? And the dentist said, I had it booked in for 2 hours and we only did a 45-minute session. I said, "Oh, I'm sorry," thinking that, something gone wrong. She said, "No, that's a good thing." I said, "Is it?" She said, "Yeah." She said, "Can you come in and tell me what you did?" So I found myself in a dentist surgery to explain to the dentist what I did. And this dentist said, "Can you give me some pamphlets and we can offer you as an alternative to general sedation?" And I'm thinking, right, so you're saying to people, on the one hand, we can give you this drug, and on the other hand, you can listen to this incredibly boring man, right? And half an hour of listening to him, you'll be zonked out and you won't know anything. I'm sure there's a compliment in there somewhere, but and one of my students, when I do NHT training, we talk about that after a tea break, people come once a month. And one day, one of the students said that she had a dental thing happening and she was a bit nervous about it. So I did the same thing with her. And at the next class, we said, "Oh, by the way, what happened with the dentist thing?" She said, "Oh, it worked really well. I fell asleep." "What, you fell asleep? What, when he was working on you?" She said, Yeah, I caught myself snoring." Right, okay. And I saw the woman in the village about a year odd later, and I said, "Oh, yeah, I did that with one of my students, and she fell asleep." She said, "Yeah, I fall asleep now as well." And I thought, "Oh, I want some of that." So now I do as well. As soon as the dentist starts working on me, I kind of feel myself drifting off into a sleep, and I'm just completely not there at all. It's fine, And I had to have an exploration of my vocal cords on Tuesday. And they said that we'd have to put a camera up your nose and then down the other side so we can look down into your throat area. So, okay. So I found myself kind of going into the kind of the zone. And I'd already told them that I teach hypnotherapy, and I told them that I did the inner light thing every Sunday. So this nurse said, "Relax and breathe. And just imagine you're in one of your own sessions." And I'm like, going like this. And my head moved back and the camera went out of alignment that they wanted to look at, because I started to kind of collapse. So I had to kind of go, "No, be conscious. Hold on a minute. Do I want to be conscious of this?" So these things can have like a powerful, impact on us. How are you finding this discussion so far?
Yeah, really good.
Yeah?
Yeah. It's good to know
Okay.
where it all came from,
Sorry?
Interesting.
Say that again? Oh,
It's
one
good to
person
know
at a
where
time.
it all came from,
Right.
where the history of it and how it developed and the mix of it all.
Yeah, cool. And Debbie, what you saying?
Yeah, really, really interesting. Actually, I mean, I've been making notes as well as I'm going through, and listing all the things that I could possibly use this to deal with my own issues. And it's quite a long list at the moment.
Yeah. We're gonna get to some of that in a bit. I mean, even just general relaxation is a powerful thing, to be able to kind of relax. And it's one of the things I teach every client is this thing of how to relax yourself in 5 seconds. Because in one sense, it's a relaxation tool, but in another sense, it's an example of self-mastery. Right? That if you're having whatever's going on, that you can just deliberately do something with your mind that means your physiology will go into an emotional state, and you know what that emotional state is. That's just one step from feeling brilliant when you walk out into the stage of a stadium to talk to 80,000 people.
Yeah, it's really useful.
It's only one step away from that.
Mm.
You know, I'm sure you'll be able to do that if you wish to. Right? So, in order to show you how to relax in 5 seconds, I'm not sure if Sophie is with us or not. Are you here, Sophie? No, not sure. Okay, Sophie's on mute. We can't hear you at all, and I can't see you either. And so I just need to have a visual thing of you while we do the showing you how to relax deeply. There might be something taking place that we don't know about. Okay, we'll let that be. All right, okay. Now, this might sound familiar, but it's slightly different to what you might be used to. So what I'd like you to do is take in a deep breath and hold it and relax as you now breathe out. That's right. And I want you to imagine that your mind is like a radar, and you can scan your body for any muscles with any tensions or any tight spots. And if you find any muscles with any tight spots or any tensions, just allow those muscles to become loose and heavy and sleepily, floppily relaxed. That's right. And now, I'd like you to focus on your breathing. And when people say focus on your breathing, they mean just notice how it feels when you breathe in and out. That's right. And just allow your breathing to follow in its own rhythm, in its own time, following the sensation of breathing in and out. And you may notice, because you're focusing on your breathing becomes a little bit deeper, a little bit easier. And that's because you've already begun to relax. Now, I want you to imagine that you can relax everything below your knees. Relax your calves. Relax your ankles. Your feet. That's right. And relax your toes. Just everything below your knees, just loose, limp, and easy. More and more deeply relaxed. Now, relax your thighs as completely as you can. Let your thighs just droop, loose, limp, and heavy. That's right. Relax your hips. Your waist. Now, allow the relaxed feeling flow up into your chest, relaxing your heart, relaxing your lungs, allowing your breathing softer, more intense, deeper than before. And let this soft, deep, heavy feeling flow through your shoulders now into your arms. Your upper arms, your forearms, and into your hands and fingers. That's right. Now back into your forearms. And as it moves up across your shoulders, have it turn into that temperature you really like to enjoy. Feel that temperature across your shoulders. Now, let it roll all the way down your back. Soothing, calming. That sense of relaxation becoming even deeper now as it moves into your neck and throat and up over your face. Allow your face to be smooth and loose. Relax your jaws, your teeth not quite touching. Just everything smooth, loose, and easy. Feel it flowing into your cheeks. Now, as completely as you can, allow the hundreds of little muscles around your eyes and eyelids relax more and more completely. Feel your eyes becoming smooth and heavy now, more and more deeply relaxed. And since you're unconscious, now has taken you this deeply into relaxation, just want you to take even deeper now with the next 6 breaths you exhale. While you have the conscious mind, make a picture of you here relaxing, and have that picture now move way off into a more distant trance hypnosis relaxation, because your unconscious now already knows relaxation is beneficial for the central nervous system. It allows the muscles in the body to relax, your thoughts relax, your feelings becoming still and quiet inside. Your mind is learning. Your mind is like a tool, and now you're beginning mastering that tool. You've used the power of your mind to relax muscles in your body. And just as you've used the power of your mind to relax muscles in your body, so too you can use the power of your mind to achieve whatever it is you want to achieve. And it's all so easy for you. Each and every time you let yourself relax, and that's right, and allow yourself to experience deepening relaxation, it becomes deeper and faster each and every time. When you're doing your self-hypnosis sessions or relaxing here with me, you will find it gets deeper and faster. And times you find that the muscles in your body become loose and heavy and sleepily, floppily relaxed. Times you find there's a light, floating sensation. And as you drift deeper and deeper inside the heart of your feelings, you find deep inside the heart of your feelings there lives a smile. And the smile that lives in the heart of your feelings is a smile of complete contentment, of feeling deeply relaxed, feeling loved, And each and every time you allow yourself to relax and flow more and more deeper inside the heart of your feelings, the smile that lives in the heart of your feelings finds it easier and easier to float to the surface and rest upon your face, such that the muscles in your face begin to change their shape into the shape of the smile. Now, I don't know if the smile that lives in the heart of your feelings will rest upon your face now or in a short while or in a little while. Only I do know that each and every time you allow yourself to relax more deeply, the smile that lives in the heart of your feelings finds it easier and easier to float to the surface. So in a moment, we're going to deepen this state of relaxation, hypnosis even more. Because in a moment, I'm going to count from 5 down to 1. And each time I count each number, you'll allow yourself to relax even more deeply. And when I finish counting and I say that word relax, then why you'll find yourself drifting all the way down into the deepest state of relaxation you've yet been able to imagine. And each time I say each number, from that part of your mind that creates and imagines and daydreams to make a picture of that number as if it's floating just in front of your face. And then as you exhale and breathe out, the number moves further and smaller and further away. And as the number disappears over the horizon, you allow yourself to relax more and more completely. And you can begin now with the number 5. That's right. You see the number 5 drift away, further and smaller away. And as it disappears over the horizon, allow yourself to relax more and more deeply. That's right. 5. Watch the number disappear. Deeper still. 5. As the number drifts away and disappears over the horizon, just allow yourself to relax more and more completely. That's right. 4. 4. 4. 3. 3. 2. 2. 2. 1. 1. 1. Relax. That's right. Just allow yourself to drift all the way down into relaxation. And it's also easy for you. All you need to do is settle yourself down into a comfortable position. Close your eyes and say inside your mind, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Relax. And why you'll find yourself drifting into deepening states of peace and comfort and relaxation. So each and any time you have any worries or anxieties or any tensions, all you need to do is settle yourself down into a comfortable position. Say inside your mind, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Relax. Why? You find all your worries and all your tensions, all your troubles just drift away and leave you like steam from a kettle, leaving you to relax, leaving you to soak in the peacefulness, the calmness that comes by the moment. And all you need to do is just settle yourself down into a comfortable position, close your eyes and say inside your mind, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, relaxed. And why? This skill will develop, and the more often you use this technique of relaxing, the more powerful, the more instant, and the faster and deeper it becomes. And there's a part of your unconscious that loves learning and loves learning new skills that you can use for the benefit of your life. That's right. And I want that part of your unconscious now to take responsibility for ensuring that she will practice these techniques. That's right. And develop them and master them. That's right. When your inner mind knows, that part of your unconscious that loves to learn has now rapidly learned how to do this technique of just saying to yourself, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, relax. Then, and only then, will you begin to return to your normal waking state, bringing with you a very real sense of peace and relaxation, and have had learned something of great importance in your life. That's right. You can take all the time you need to complete all of these instructions and begin to return now. That's right. Returning now back to normal consciousness. All right. And as Sophie is going through the process of returning, how do you feel, guys? What was that like?
I'm too chilled out to be able to answer.
Yeah. Very,
Right.
very chilled.
Very chilled. Yeah.
I
And
think
that's only half the amount of time of the inner light meditation. Yeah. It is good, isn't it? Okay. That's right, Sophie. Returning now to your normal waking state to rejoin us here in this room. That's right. So we can then experience the next stages in this incredible, illuminating learning day. Now, you notice sometimes there are people who, when they finish the inner light meditation, spring out and they get on with their day. And other people have done things like on a Sunday morning, I've got messages at 2 a.m. saying I've just come out of the relaxation, you know. Yeah. So different people process at different speeds. Some people kind of process information incredibly quickly. Other people take, just a little bit of time to do that.
I'm just wondering how, in a situation that's really stressful, particularly in conflicty situations, how you can say to the person, can you just give me like
well,
10 seconds?
I'll show you some things around that in a moment. Yes, because we need to kind of continue with the day. Yeah. Hi, Sophie. Just return to your normal waking state now. That's right. Just want that part of your unconscious that does things quickly. Ah, okay. But Sophie's obviously absorbing something there. So now what I want you guys to do is to do this. Put your hands out in front of yourself like this. Right? Okay. And now do this. Consciousness. Ah. Oh, it was so nice being there, wasn't it? Rotten man. Rotten man. It was nice being there. All right. Okay. Now, I want you to do an experiment for you to be like a journalist or an observer, an experiment, right? In a moment, what I want you to do is it's probably best to do it with your eyes closed first. So close your eyes, right? And just imagine you can see the number 5 hovering in front of your face, right? And say the number 5 to yourself privately, right? Right. And as you say the number 5 to yourself, say it just as you exhale, and imagine you can see the number 5 moving away, almost like you're breathing the number away, right? And when you get to the end of your breath, imagine the number disappearing over an imaginary horizon. And then breathe in, because we don't want you going blue, right? And then with the next out breath, say the number 4. See the number 4 in front of your face, drifting further and smaller away. And as you get to the end of the out breath, imagine it disappears over an imaginary horizon. So do 5, then 4, then 3, then 2, then 1. And after the number 1, say the word relax inside your mind privately. And just notice what happens. Do any muscles change? Does any tension change? Does your breathing speed change? And you can use the sound of your voice, or you can use your memory of the sound of my voice. So give it a go. Do that now and let me know how you find it. So once you've formed a conclusion about how you feel in response to doing that, let me know. That's it.
My muscles seem to feel heavier, kind of.
Yeah. Joe, what's it like for you?
I go completely relaxed to so I have to pull myself back actually, or I would sort of just go to sleep.
Mary, what's it like for you?
I find it very relaxing and quite easy to do, although I can't actually visualize the numbers the way that you do.
Mm-hmm.
It's enough just to go through the breathing and saying the numbers in my mind.
Excellent. Okay. And Debbie, what's it like for you?
Yeah, a bit like Joe, I was off again, and if I didn't, I'm struggling to come back in the room, so I just want to go off.
Okay. All right. If you want to come back to the room, just do the thing with your hands, and it will bring you back out.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Though you don't want to, but you do. But
No, you just want to keep going.
I
And
know.
it's such a lovely
Now,
feeling.
If
I
you
think
do,
that partly might be because I do some of those inner light meditations, so it's a bit like I'm go back there and go to sleep.
yeah. Now, if you do that 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 relax little technique thing, very, very frequently, like a couple of times a day at least, for about 6 months, right? Because it only takes 5 seconds, right? You'll find that, like weight training a muscle, you'll carve out those new pathways in your brain, and they'll become physical. This stuff actually changes the architecture in your brain, right? And then after that, you'll find even just thinking about doing it, you'll start relaxing. Now, if you're in a supermarket and there's an old lady in front of you with arthritis and a bag of pennies, right? And you think, I've got this queue, and you find that it's inappropriate to maybe kind of close your eyes and stand there and then fall over on the floor. What you can do with your eyes open is you can use an object in the distance. So if you fixate on a wall clock or fixate on an object, and then imagine you can see the numbers drifting through the object, that'll do it. Another thing you can do is just let one or both of your hands go loose and floppy by your side. Yeah, there's an explanation behind that, but yeah. Now, I had the impression that what we've done so far would take about an hour, and then we'd have a tea break, and then we'd have another hour, right, and finish around 1ish. That was my idea. We haven't quite even got up to the tea break part yet. I've obviously kind of mistimed the amount of content, and I've decided to kind of tell you loads and loads and loads of things. So we got a choice in a way. We can end soon, or we can have a tea break, and you can have a lot more. What do you want from this free session? Do you want more? Or do you want to go, nah, that's enough?
I'd love more, but I've got to take my mum out at around 1ish.
Okay. Anyone else want to continue? And have
I'd love more, but I also need to look after. Well, just check that my son's all right. But
is there a possibility of a part 2?
Yeah, maybe.
Okay, yeah, I could do it as a part 2.
That'd be fantastic.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Well, I'll finish up what I was going to do up until the tea break. Yeah, and then we use the other session as another session, if you like. How's that sound?
Thanks, David. That's brilliant.
Yeah,
that'd be amazing. Thank you.
Okay, because I want to talk to you about training and what it's like and and all sorts of things. Now, even just at the relaxation stage, when I do the training, you learn how to do that on day 1, right? So someone comes to my house, I start teaching them, these tools and techniques, and it's always done over 12 sessions. There's 11 sessions of training, and then the last session is an exam. That's the first year. And the first day of the first year, you learn how to do that. So you can walk out and you've got a piece of paper, right? And you can say those words to someone and they will go into a relaxed state. And it's seriously cool when you know how to do that. And there's other things you can do with it. I was at a wedding once, and I was on a table of men who were on their own, and the inevitable conversation starts up. What do you do for a living? And they're all kind of, and I didn't feel comfortable just saying I'm an astrologer. So I said, I do NLP stuff. And the guy next to me said, oh, that's interesting. I've heard of that. I'm in finances. And I thought he was a guy who comes around your house and does your mortgage or your pension. But it turned out he was the director of London's largest corporate finance insurance company. And so, and he started talking to me about some of the staff could present at manager level, but they were kind of losing it when they got to the board, and their contracts are worth millions. They were doing the insurance for Boots and WH Smith and you know, things like that. So it sounded to me like these guys just had stage fright. So I said, it sounds like they got stage fright. He said, could you help? I said, sure. He said, what's your fee? I thought, this is corporate, isn't it? So I cheekily doubled my fee, man. And he said, is that all? I said, that's the pilot fee. He said, what's the proper fee? So I moved the decimal point, and he said, oh, that's fine. I'm like, what? Right? I'd never encountered anything like that before. So I found myself in the city of London on a regular basis doing these things. And I was showing the HR director some techniques one time, and he just happened to mention that he was a bit nervous because that evening he had to go and do a talk and give it like a after dinner speech at his best friend's 50th birthday. And he was nervous. So I said, oh, I could show you a couple of things if you want. So I showed him about 2 or 3 things in about 5 minutes. Right? And next time I spoke to him, he said, that was really good. I said, what was really good? He said, I got a standing ovation after I did that talk. So really? He said, yeah, people thought I was brilliant. Some people thought I was a lawyer because my communication was so clear and eloquent. He said, this is really good. And then within a few days, one of his team phoned me up and said, we wondered, could you do a course in stress management? And I said, yeah, I could, but I wouldn't. And they said, oh, we were hoping you would because we've got a lot of stress in the workplace. I said, I'm sure you think you have, but I wouldn't recommend stress management. And they said, oh, wouldn't you? I said, no, I do stress elimination. They went, what? I said, well, if you think about it, stress management means you're managing your stress. That means the stress still exists. I'd be more interested in getting rid of it completely. And they went, you can't do that. I said, I understand that you can't do that, but I actually can. And if you give me a couple of days, I'll show you how. So they put this intranet thingy out, and they got a bunch of people together. And I went to this hotel in London, and we did a 2-day program of stress elimination. And at the beginning, there was people like shaking like this at the beginning. And one of the things I do is quite often when I'm kind of demonstrating things about language and communication skills and things, I use clips of comedians, right? Because they are brilliant communicators. If you can walk into a theater, stand in front of a slim microphone and get 4,000 people belly laughing within minutes, and you hold them there for 2 hours, right? That is one hell of a communication skill. I watch a lot of live comedy. Right. I'm either buying tickets for Bill Bailey or for, bands, but yeah. So, and not because I'm necessarily dissecting or analyzing, but I just let my unconscious learn it all. It all sorts of flows in there somewhere. Hopefully some of it comes out. Right. But, yeah. So in this thing, before tea break, we watched a clip of Dave Allen talking about body language. And the room were all falling around laughing because it's very funny. And the HR lady popped in. She said, is everything okay? I said, yeah. We're just watching a thing about body language. And she said that it's a bit early for them to be laughing. Like they're not supposed to laugh until near the end, I guess. But anyway, on day one, I taught them the physiology of stress and the biology of it, what's actually happening, and gave them tools. So I kind of figured 1-to-1, you can kind of find out how someone's brains function, and then you can show them the tools that would work for them as an individual. Right? If you're doing a thing in a room, you don't know who's thinking in which ways. Some people can think in pictures really clearly, other people can't do that. So I kind of took along with me a toolbox of a variety of tools. So I showed them about half a dozen different ways of being able to relax and things. So I knew that at least one of them would suit each person, have a group of 30. And one of the things I got the company to do was to put a video recorder with VHS tapes in it at the back of the room, fixated on where I'd be sitting so that I could have a video of the whole thing. Right? Because I found that if you do something like that and you video yourself, when you watch yourself back, you learn how to improve. It's like if you compare yourself to other people, you slow your learning down. If you compare yourself to yourself, you learn more quickly. So by doing any kind of performance thing, watching yourself back again means then that your brain goes, oh, that bit, tweak that bit, adjust that bit. Next time when you do it, it's even better. And you can exponentially develop your skill, right? By doing the opposite of what most people do, which is to ignore how they've done something. Anyway, so there's this kind of video camera running. And at the end of day 2, just as the HR lady came in for the last 20 minutes, and I got all the people to kind of have a general discussion about what we've learned and what we've done, and they all said, so I said, so what do you think then? And they said, well, stress, isn't a thing; it doesn't exist. And they were all in agreement that they know how to be able to manage their own body, and that stress doesn't exist. And they all filed out really happy with a tape and a leaflet and things. And the HR lady, when they'd all gone, she said, you got that on film? I said, yeah, sorry, I haven't stopped it yet. And she said, you've got it on film saying that stress doesn't exist. And I said, yeah. And she said, well, I didn't tell you this, that 3 of those people are on the verge of taking the company to court for stress in the working environment. And you've got them on film saying stress doesn't exist. And she's thinking, my job is safe, my job is safe, my job is safe. And I'm thinking, woo, I think we'll do this again. And we did it on a quarterly basis. And that 2 days would pay all of my direct debits and bills for 3 months. Any other classes, any astrology work I was doing was outside of that, like a bonus. And I did that for a couple of years. It was really good fun. The company got benefit from it because they didn't have absenteeism through stress. The company paid me what I thought was a lot of money, but for them was small fry, really. And all these people learned some tools that when they went home, their home atmosphere was more relaxed. Their children were learning that a parent can relax themselves. So, because parents learn from watching their kids, right? And so if a parent's always uptight or always kind of full of angst, the child learns to be an adult, you must be full of angst. But then if the adult starts to relax themselves and learns tools of being able to kind of compose things in their brain, then the child learns that's something they can do too. And so it's beneficial all round. It's a win-win. Everybody got something out of it. So there are a lot of things you can do with this, even if it's just with that sort of thing. I would recommend that one of the things I do when I'm doing my training is I show people a program that was about different uses of hypnosis in different parts of the world, from commerce to advertising, politicians, and all this sort of thing. And I watch out for that stuff. I think it was 2009. I noticed that Tory party members were doing something to hypnotize the general public using a hypnotic language. I was watching Newsnight, and he was interviewing this guy called Chris Grayling. And this guy said the same phrase, and I counted it 12 times in 2 minutes, right? He must have been given the instruction, shoehorn this in, right? Say this as much as possible. So instead of being subtle about it, which, unconscious language is invisible. If you can spot it, it's not unconscious, it's conscious, right? So full of incompetence, Chris Grayling said something like this to Paxman. Well, of course, we want to help the people who do the right thing, because the people who do the right thing want to do the right thing. They pay their taxes, they go to work, and we want to do the right thing by the people who want to do the right thing. And I think it's the right thing to do. It sounded like that to me. And it just stood out. And I thought, oh, and I watched Prime Minister's Questions the next Wednesday. And David Cameron, who was then, opposition, said to Gordon Brown, well, the Labour Party, but at least the Tory Party want to do the right thing by the right people, and the place went into uproar. And it became a political buzzword. And even after the next general election, when Miliband was leader of the opposition then, when the coalition started, Miliband stood up and said in Parliament, well, you know, and the Labour Party want to do the right thing. Now, a question for you all. What is the opposite of right? I can't hear you.
Left.
Indeed. What's another opposite of right?
Wrong.
Whoa, hold on. Now, how many of you, when you're doing something, if you're making dinner for someone, or if you're, you know, doing something creative, do you want to do it right? You like to get things right. Sure you do. Yeah. So you're already primed psychologically to want to err towards always doing things right and not being wrong. I don't want to be wrong. I don't want to get it wrong. You know, what's the point? What's the point of having a go and getting it wrong, right? Want to get it right. Yeah, want to do the right thing. So when you go into a wooden booth and you're asked to make a decision about which direction life should go, about which direction your community should go, about which direction your whole nation should go, you want to get it right. Now, that means that you don't want to be wrong, but it also means you don't want to be left. Because if you get everything right, there's nothing left, literally. Right? What an insipid phrase. And that was a buzzword for years. You still hear it coming up occasionally on Question Time. You know, it's not being pumped out so much now. But it has swayed large numbers of people to go right. You know, since 2012, you might notice there's been a lurch to the right, but the far right have got more of a voice. Brexit's an example of that. You know, I think the next day after the Brexit vote in London, attacks on black people went up by 47%, and they're nothing to do with Europe. You know, so it's given tacit permission for the right to come out. We've had, you know, the first, I think I'm right in saying this, the first political assassination this century since the right started to become more acceptable. So what else are they doing? And what else is going in your brain that you're not noticing? Learning these tools enables you, it gives you like an immune system around that. If your conscious mind is aware of hypnotic language, it doesn't work on you, right? Although there are circumstances where that isn't quite the case, I have to say, in a way. One Saturday, Michael Harrison pulled up outside my house in Pewsey and opened the door. Hello. And he said, if you, David, put the kettle on while I get the box from the car. And then he went to the car to get a box of things out. And I went in the kitchen, I put the kettle on, and then I just played it back in my head. And I said, Michael, he said, yeah. I said, how long have you been doing that to me? He said, 2 years. I said, 2 years? He said, yeah, I teach you this stuff. I expect you to notice it. Right? What he did was, in his phrasing, if you, David, that means I'm the performer, identifying the person. If you, David, put the kettle on while connecting word, I get the box in the car. What that does in my brain is it creates an equation that while he's getting the box in the car, I will put the kettle on. And then what he did was he deliberately went straight to the car to get the box. Because my brain observed him getting the box, I, like an automaton, went in the kitchen, went and put the kettle on. Bugger, yeah. But he was right. I mean, he was teaching me, and so it's appropriate. It's okay. Right? When it isn't okay is if it's when it's people that you don't expect it. You know, politicians, advertisers, gurus, and things like this. You know, it's very difficult to get people to fly an aeroplane into a building full of people unless you've done something to their brain first. Now, there's something that you might have done in the astrology class, but I kind of want to show you this again because, like I said, this is going to go on YouTube, so there might be some people kind of watching this that don't know what this is. What I want you to do is I want you to think of any kind of experience where you felt a little bit flat just slightly, under par. Identify one out of all the ones you might have, but either just with a hand or with the word yes, let me know you found one. Okay. All right. Now, thinking of that thing, I want you to think of that thing. All right. And freeze. Keep your body still while you're thinking of that thing. And that means absolutely still. Every muscle in your body, absolutely still. Now what I want you to do is move the muscles in one of your hands and arms and shoulders to lift your hand up into the air with your fingers sticking out like this. Right? And then what I want you to do is move it so the finger goes underneath your jaw. And I want you to lift your head up about 1 or 2 inches. Move your hand down. And now notice, what's it like when you think of that thing that you'd identified? Does it feel the same or does it feel different? And what do you notice, guys? Is it the same or different? And let me know.
Different.
Different.
Yeah, is that a better difference or a worse difference?
Better.
Yeah. Mary, what's it like for you? Is it, yeah? And Deb, what did you get? Is it better or yeah?
Yes, instantly better.
Yeah. Now, how come? Wow. Now, the explanation for that is it's the word proprioception, right? Proprioception. If you think of the brain as just the stuff in your skull, that's a bit incorrect in a sense. You have nerves going through your whole body. Every inch of your skin is covered in nerve cells. Those are neurons. That your whole body is your brain. Most of it's inside the skull, but it actually distributes all the way around. Right? There are almost as many neurons in your gut as there are in your spine. Right? Now, when we have a certain mood, our body goes into a certain shape. So, like if you're feeling down and depressed, it's very difficult to feel down and depressed and do this. I'm having a hard day. Feeling really upset. It's really hard to do jazz hands and feel flat, right? Likewise, if you can imagine putting your chin down and telling someone your good news. I've had some wonderful news. It's so good. I feel very elated. Oh my goodness. Feelings have shapes, right? And there's something about the relationship between the angle of the head and the spine, right? That when a person thinks of a certain thing, their head will go into a certain elevation in relationship to the spine. So even if they're lying down, it'll still be the same angle, right? And by changing the angle of your head in relationship to the spine, you suddenly find you can't access the emotions in the same way. It creates a dissociation. Right? I think that's behind the phrase chin up. Chin up. Have another go with another one. There's just a couple of little things. Now, I want you to identify a different thing, something that you'd like to feel differently about. Right? It could be something from your past that was difficult. It could be something in your present that you'd like to feel differently about. It could be something that you anticipate might be happening in the future. Right? But let me know when you've found one, when you've identified a thing, either with a hand up or say yes. Okay, you've all got something. All right. Now, I want you to look away from the computer screen or your phone or tablet. And I want you to imagine that out in front of you, there's an invisible projection screen. And you can see the image of that circumstance or event on the screen. And I'm going to ask you some strange questions. I want you to notice if it's moving or still. I want you to notice if it's in color or is it black and white? And I want you to imagine you've got controls in your brain like a TV set or remote control. So if the image is moving, have it freeze frame, become still. If it's in color, drain the color out of it all the way so it goes completely black and white. That's right. And now I want you to do something a bit strange to it. I want you to squash it into itself so it goes 2D, and put a square white frame around it so it looks like a black and white photograph. In fact, give it a brown sepia tint so it looks like an old photograph. That's right. And now have that photograph move further and smaller and further and further and smaller away. All the way out there. Now play with the gravity and allow it to kind of gently float down to the floor like a feather sinking down through warm air. And now look at it out there, down there on the floor. And now you're looking at it out there, down there on the floor. Does it feel the same or different? I need you to respond to that.
Different.
Okay.
Less significant.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, different.
Yeah. And Mary, is it different for you? I can't hear you.
A little.
Yeah, it's right. Now, would you like to keep it like this in this new frame? Yeah. Okay, very quickly, look up at the ceiling, right up at the ceiling. Look at one of your hands. Look at me on the screen. Say, thank you.
Thank you.
Marvelous. My pleasure. Right. There you go. Now think of that circumstance or event. What's it seem like now?
I can't kind of grasp the feeling.
Detached, yeah.
Yeah.
So is that better for you as a way to think about it?
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. It's cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, if you were going to sit with a friend or a counselor and you were going to talk about that issue or circumstance and talk it round to the extent that you got the same degree of change that you've got, how long would you have to talk for?
Ugh.
Roughly, what do you think?
I'm still talking about it. It's not stopped.
Yeah.
Right, but now you've done that. In order to get the same magnitude of change, how long would you have had to talk about it to get that magnitude of change?
Probably quite a few sessions.
A few sessions. What is that? A few hours, do you mean?
Yeah, hours. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Now, how long did that take?
Minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. Should we say 5? Should we be generous and say 5? Yeah. Okay. So after this, someone might say to you, so what was it like? So, yeah, David helped me out with that thing. Wow, you must have taken up the whole session doing that. You say, no, he did it in 5 minutes. Whoa, you had hours of counseling in 5 minutes. Yeah. So what did he say about that? Well, nothing, because I didn't tell him what it was about. Hold on. Whoa. You just had hours of counseling in 5 minutes about something you didn't even tell me what it was about. How can someone help you to change your relationship with a memory or circumstance so swiftly without even talking about it? Remember I mentioned that all of our memories are neurological: sight, sounds, tastes, and smells. Right. Epictetus said 2,000 years ago, we are not troubled by things, but rather by the opinions we have of things. But those opinions are conscious, but they're also unconscious as well. And your unconscious speaks in the language of neurology, sights, sounds, tastes, and smells. When you present yourself with information through those memes, that means that your unconscious can take it on board. It's much easier to kind of communicate in your unconscious language. So since every single second of your life is like a frame in a movie, right? So although you experience the world kind of flowing through, what's kind of happening, your brain's going like that, but very, very rapidly, okay? And each one of those frames has sights and sounds and tastes and smells, temperatures, proprioception, all built into it. So what I showed your unconscious what to do was to identify a particular or isolate a particular phenomena. And then in a dissociated state, i.e. it's out in front of you, you had an image. If it was moving, it became still. And if it was color, it became black and white. So, and then we got you to kind of turn it into a photograph and made it an old photograph. So as soon as it became a black and white photograph, it became in the past. Yeah, because that your brain would code that as something in the past. By giving it a brown sepia tint, it became far back in the past. So that should be in a museum, right? So that means it's got nothing to do with the present anymore. All right? And then having it move further away, we know that if if a person's got something unpleasant and it's far away from them, you've got space, you can breathe, you've got breathing space in the problem. If it's here, you're overwhelmed by it. Right? Some people do that the other way around. You can say to somebody, when was your last good holiday? And they go, and it's like a postage stamp on the horizon, too far away. You know, bring your holiday closer. That was nice. That was good fun. I enjoyed that. It's not removing anything from your unconscious. It's not repressing anything. It's not destroying anything. What it's doing is it's basically shuffling the furniture, right? You're refiling it, right? But you're refiling it neurologically. And by refining it neurologically, it feels different. And that means your relationship with it has changed. You know, your memories are your memories. Your past will always be what your past is. But you can change the relationship you have with certain things in your past. And by changing your relationship with certain things in your past, that means your present feels different. And that means as you open yourself to the gift of the future, you can take a better present with you. Isn't that cool? Thought you might like that. Right. I think then, yes, we are done for today. We've reached the tea break that I was intending. Yeah. Do you want to do part 2 next week? Yeah, we could do that if you want. How's that for you? About the same time? Or maybe slightly earlier?
Earlier would be better for me because Saturday is the only day one wants to go out because I'm working all week.
Right. Okay. How about is 10 a.m. good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
David, I'm away next week actually because it's my birthday, so I'm going away.
All right. In that case, then, how about the week after? People are working, aren't they? They're not all. Yeah, we could do an evening. We could do it in the evening.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah.
Evening's also good.
Yeah,
An evening's good. All right. How about Tuesday?
I've got Spanish on Tuesday.
Okay. How about Wednesday?
Perfect.
Wednesday.
Right.
Yeah.
Wednesday's good.
Wednesday. All right then. Okay. Now timing. Should we do it at the usual kind of class time, 6:30?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
All right then.
Is 7 o'clock? Oh no, maybe not.
No, we can do it any. Yes.
7 o'clock would be better for me as well.
Say that again.
I was just saying if we could do it a little bit later, because I don't finish work till around about that time. So it is always a rush on Mondays.
Okay. How about 7 then?
If 7's okay with everyone and with you, David, that would be
Yeah.
Yeah?
7
All
would be great.
So 7 p.m. on Tuesday. Is that
Wednesday.
okay for you, Mary? Is that all right? Yeah?
Wednesday.
Oh, sorry. Yes, 7 p.m. on Wednesday.
That's the 2nd of December, yeah.
Yeah, excellent.
Fantastic. Marvellous.
Wonderful. Cool.
Really appreciate that.
It's a pleasure. Yeah, because the amount of stuff I was going to show you was, there's quite a bit more. So, yeah. All right. Yeah, I'm like a child in an attic that's found a rummaging box. I go, oh, look at this. Oh, look at this. Oh, look at this. You know, the stuff you can do with this is incredible. You know, I mean, I took myself from a standing start into a master's degree and got a distinction for the dissertation at the end of it, never having written an essay in my life. I didn't even know what referencing was. Right?
Wow.
My learning curve was vertical. Right? When I found myself kind of sitting at a kitchen table one Sunday morning and in the next master's degree, and I had all these piles of neuroscience books on the table, and I was just about to start photo reading them or throwing them into my brain, and I thought, God, you know, the version of myself that didn't have any education at all and left school without anything, and then here I am, kind of writing science papers on brain maturation. It's quite a difference, you know. So I use myself as an example of these things as well. You know, I stopped smoking 25 years ago when I did the training. This time last year, I was drinking a lot of wine. And so I did a session with myself in January. That's it. End of alcohol. And there's no sense of loss or missing at all. You know, because when you pull the weed out from the garden, there isn't any kind of thing there, you know. And so talking to people who kind of smoke, and you say, you know, if you could stop smoking without any withdrawal symptoms, would you want to do that? And you can actually show people how to do things like that without any withdrawal symptoms. It's a cool thing. Right. Thank you for your time today. It's been good fun, kind of rattling through some of these things again. And we'll meet up on Wednesday at 7 p.m. Wednesday at 7 p.m. And we'll talk a bit more about what these things can do. There's some deep things I want to share with you, and some of it's a bit tender as well. But I've got some reasons for doing that, you know, because it'll help a little bit. Right. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's brilliant.
Thank you for your time, David.
It's my pleasure. And there's always play out music when I finish these things, obviously. If you want to, you can take it personally. All right. Okay. I'll see you later. All right. Bye.
Happy birthday, Ange, because we won't see you on Monday, but have a lovely birthday.
Oh, thank you.
Bye.
When your inner mind knows, you can hear my voice. Your deep inner healing sleep shall start. There's a part of you that remembers the stars. As you breathe, breathe in the light of love in my voice. Breathe in the healing of these words. Your deep inner healing, sleeping in dreams. Of light flowing throughout you, silver and green. Deep into your lungs, deep into your heart. With this sound, your deep inner healing now starts. As you breathe, breathe.